Hey you. How was your today? Was it okay? Let me take you somewhere else for a while. Somewhere with rain-streaked office windows, where the hum of computers mixes with quickened breaths, where professional boundaries blur under neon city lights. This is Blue Light, a slow-burn office romance that'll make you forget to blink. For everyone who's ever lingered a little too long near that special coworker, this story's for you. Get comfortable. Unbutton that top button. And let's begin. Blue Light. The office was quiet, save for the hum of the computer fan and the distant pulse of the city beyond the glass. The soft blue glow of the screen painted sharp shadows across Lena's face as she typed, her fingers moving with quiet determination. She should have left hours ago, but the report wasn't going to finish itself, and she'd promised it by morning. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the skyline shimmered, a constellation of artificial stars, cold and bright. The reflection of the screen flickered in the glass, doubling the light, making the room feel both smaller and infinitely vast. A sound, a footstep, deliberate and unhurried, made her spine straighten. She knew that rhythm. Still here? His voice was low, smooth, the kind that carried without effort. She turned, and there he was, Daniel Carter, standing in the doorway of her office, his silhouette framed by the dim glow of the hallway. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms dusted with dark hair. The top button of his shirt was undone, and the hollow of his throat caught the light just enough to draw her eye. She swallowed. Just finishing up. He stepped inside, his polished shoes silent on the carpet. You've been saying that for weeks. A faint smile touched his lips, and she felt the warmth of it like a brush against her skin. He had a way of looking at her, steady, unflinching, that made her pulse quicken. As if he could see the thoughts she tucked away, the ones she barely let herself acknowledge. It's important, she said, turning back to the screen, if only to break the weight of his gaze. He moved closer, until the heat of his body was a tangible thing at her back. The scent of his cologne, spice and something darker, something like leather, wrapped around her. You work too hard, he murmured. She could feel his breath against her ear, the words a quiet rumble that sent a shiver down her neck. Her fingers stilled on the keyboard. Someone has to. A low chuckle. And that someone is always you. She turned her head slightly, just enough to see him from the corner of her eye. His jaw was shadowed with stubble, his lips parted just enough to reveal the edge of his teeth. He was close. Too close. The kind of close that made her breath hitch, that made her wonder what would happen if she leaned back, just an inch. The chair creaked as he rested a hand on its back, his fingers brushing the edge of her shoulder. An accident. Probably. But neither of them moved. The air between them thickened, charged with something unspoken. The glow of the screen painted his skin in shades of blue, made his eyes darker, deeper. She could hear his breathing, slow and measured, as if he, too, was holding something in. Then, his thumb grazed the curve of her shoulder. Deliberate this time. A question. Her heart hammered. Outside, the city lights blurred. His touch lingered, just a fraction too long to be accidental. The pad of his thumb traced the edge of her collarbone, a whisper of contact that sent a slow, liquid heat pooling in her stomach. She should pull away. She would pull away. But she didn't. The screen before her blurred, the words swimming into meaningless shapes. Her breath came shallow, her body hyper-aware of every shift in the air between them. The warmth of his chest hovered just behind her, close enough that if she leaned back. No. She forced her fingers to move, typing something, anything, to anchor herself. The keys clicked under her touch, sharp in the silence. Daniel exhaled, a quiet sound that might have been amusement. Or frustration. His hand slid from the chair, but not before his fingers trailed down her arm, a fleeting caress that left goosebumps in its wake. "You're tense," he murmured. She swallowed. "Long day." He stepped around her, leaning against the edge of her desk. The movement brought him into her line of sight, his thighs bracketing the corner, his posture relaxed, but his eyes anything but. They were dark, intent, tracking the flush she could feel creeping up her neck. He reached out, plucked a pen from her desk, and turned it between his fingers. A distraction. Or a provocation. "You should take a break," he said. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The air between them was thick, syrupy with something unspoken. The pen stilled in his hand. Then. A chime. Sharp, sudden. The office phone on her desk lit up, an incoming call flashing across the screen. They both startled. Lena exhaled, the spell broken. Daniel straightened, his expression shuddering into something more neutral, though his fingers flexed once around the pen before he set it down. "You should get that," he said, voice low. She reached for the receiver, her hand trembling just enough to notice. Lena Carter speaking. "A client. Something about tomorrow's meeting." She answered mechanically, her mind still caught in the space between his body and hers. Daniel watched her, his gaze heavy, before pushing off the desk with a quiet sigh. "I'll be in my office," he murmured, "just for her." Then he was gone. The call ended. The room felt too large without him in it. She stared at the doorway, her skin still humming where he'd touched her. The hum of the computer filled the silence again, but the air still felt charged, as if a storm had passed through and left the scent of ozone behind. Lena flexed her fingers, trying to dispel the lingering warmth of Daniel's touch. The report in front of her was forgotten, just a blur of numbers and text. All she could think about was the way his thumb had traced her collarbone, the way his voice had dropped to that rough, intimate register. She stood abruptly, her chair rolling back with a soft scrape. Coffee. She needed coffee. The break room was dim, lit only by the under-cabinet lighting, casting long shadows across the countertops. She fumbled with the machine, her hands unsteady as she measured the grounds. The rich, bitter scent filled the small space, grounding her slightly. Then, footsteps. She didn't need to turn to know it was him. The air shifted, grew heavier, like the moment before a thunderclap. "Couldn't sleep either?" Daniel's voice was closer than she expected. She turned, and there he was, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. His shirt sleeves were still rolled up, revealing the corded muscle of his forearms. The shadows hollowed his cheeks, sharpened the line of his jaw. "Something like that," she admitted. He pushed off the frame and stepped inside, the space between them shrinking with each movement. The coffee machine gurgled behind her, steam curling into the air. "You left your desk," he said. "I needed a break." "From the work?" A pause. "Or from me?" Her breath caught. He was close enough now that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell the faint spice of his cologne mixed with something warmer, something uniquely him. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. His gaze dropped to her mouth, just for a second, but it was enough to send a jolt through her. The coffee machine hissed, the sound loud in the quiet room. Then. He reached past her, his arm brushing hers as he turned off the machine. The contact was fleeting, but it burned. She could feel the heat of his body, the solid presence of him, so close she could count his lashes if she wanted to. "You're shaking," he murmured. She wasn't sure if she was. All she knew was that her pulse was racing, her skin too tight, her thoughts scattering like leaves in the wind. His hand hovered near hers, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "Tell me to stop," he said, voice rough. She didn't. The coffee machine's last drops fell like an exhale into the carafe. Steam curled between them, vanishing into the charged air. Lena's fingers twitched against the counter's edge, the cold granite keeping her grounded even as the rest of her threatened to float away. Daniel didn't move. Didn't retreat. His hand remained suspended near hers, the space between their skin humming with possibility. When she didn't speak, his fingers brushed her wrist, just the lightest contact, a question written in fire against her pulse point. Her breath hitched, and his eyes darkened in response. Lena. Her name in his mouth was a confession. The overhead lights flickered, some late-night power surge in the building, and in that heartbeat of darkness, something shifted. His other hand came up to cradle her jaw, his touch devastating in its certainty. She could feel the calluses on his palms, the slight tremor in his fingers that betrayed his control. The world narrowed to the space where their breath mingled, coffee and mint and something hotter, something desperate. His thumb traced the curve of her lower lip, and she couldn't stop the soft sound that escaped her. That was all it took. His mouth crashed into hers, not hard, but insistent, a claim and a surrender all at once. The taste of him flooded her senses, dark and rich and utterly intoxicating. Her hands found his chest, the heat of him through his shirt making her dizzy. She could feel his heartbeat under her palms, wild and relentless. He pulled back just enough to murmur against her lips, "Tell me this isn't what you want." Her fingers twisted in his shirt, pulling him closer in answer. The counter dug into her back as he pressed against her, his body a solid line of heat. His mouth trailed down her throat, teeth grazing the sensitive skin below her ear. She arched into him, gasping when his hands slid to her waist, thumbs brushing the sliver of bare skin where her blouse had ridden up. Somewhere in the building, an elevator dinged. A distant voice echoed down the hall. They froze. Daniel's breath was ragged against her neck. Slowly, reluctantly, he pulled back, his hands lingering as if memorizing the shape of her. "We should." His voice was rough. "Your report." She nodded, though every nerve in her body screamed in protest. The fluorescent lights buzzed back to full brightness, harsh and unforgiving. The moment hung between them, fragile as the steam still rising from their forgotten coffee. The walk back to her desk felt like crossing a canyon. Every step stretched between what had happened and what might still come, her body still humming where he'd touched her. Behind her, Daniel's footsteps were measured, controlled, the rhythm of a man clinging to composure by his fingernails. The office seemed darker now, the city lights outside blurring into streaks of gold through the glass. Lena's abandoned computer screen had gone to sleep, leaving only the dim pulse of the power light. She reached to wake it, but Daniel's hand closed over hers. "Leave it." His voice was gravel, the words vibrating through her where their skin met. He turned her hand palm up, tracing the lines with his thumb in slow, deliberate circles. The simple touch burned hotter than their kiss, this quiet claiming in the dark. Somewhere on another floor, a vacuum cleaner whined to life. The night cleaning crew. They should move apart. They didn't. Daniel's free hand came up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering along her jaw. "You never answered me before." She could barely think with him this close. "What question?" "If you wanted me to stop." The vacuum's hum grew louder down the hall. "Closer." Lena turned her face into his touch, her lips brushing his palm. His sharp inhale was her reward. The cleaning cart rattled into view at the end of their corridor. Daniel stepped back, but his eyes promised this wasn't over. He straightened his cuffs with quick, efficient motions, the only betrayal of his usual composure being the way his fingers fumbled the buttons. "I'll review your report in my office," he said, voice carefully neutral. Bring it when you're finished. A command. An invitation. The janitor rounded the corner, headphones on, oblivious. Lena nodded, her fingers finding the keyboard as Daniel walked away. She didn't watch him go, she could feel it, the weight of his gaze like physical touch between her shoulder blades until he disappeared into the elevator. The report took 15 minutes. She could have done it in 5, but her hands kept pausing over the keys, distracted by the memory of his mouth. When she finally stood, her legs were steadier than she expected, carrying her toward the elevator with quiet purpose. The night air outside the building was cool, but her skin still burned where he'd touched her. Above, in a window 30 floors up, a single office light remained on. Waiting. Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard, the glow of the screen painting her skin pale blue in the darkened office. The numbers blurred before her eyes. She'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for 20 minutes. A shadow moved in the glass reflection. She didn't need to turn to know it was him. The air thickened the way it always did when Daniel entered a room, that subtle shift in atmospheric pressure that made the fine hairs on her arms stand at attention. You're working late. His voice rolled through the quiet like distant thunder. The leather chair creaked as she turned. He stood in the doorway, one shoulder propped against the frame, tie loosened and top button undone. The dim light caught the edge of his jaw, the curve of his lower lip. "So are you," she said, proud of how steady her voice sounded while her pulse hammered in her throat. Daniel pushed off the doorframe and stepped inside, his polished Oxford silent on the carpet. The click of the door locking behind him echoed like a gunshot in the quiet. "I was reviewing your report." He stopped just behind her chair, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Thorough work." "As always." His hand came to rest on the back of her chair, his fingers brushing the nape of her neck. The touch was feather-light, almost accidental. Almost. Lena swallowed hard. The scent of his cologne, wood smoke and something darker, something dangerous, wrapped around her. "You missed a decimal point," he murmured, leaning down so his breath ghosted over her ear. Page 37. She could feel the curve of his smile against her skin. "Shall I show you?" The spreadsheet long forgotten, Lena turned in her chair to face him. His eyes were black in the dim light, pupils blown wide. "I think that would be prudent," she managed. Daniel's hand slid from the chair to cup her jaw, his thumb brushing the corner of her mouth. "Prudent," he repeated, the word a velvet rasp. "Yes. We should always be prudent." Somewhere in the building, an elevator dinged. The sound faded into the hum of the ventilation system. Neither of them moved. The first drop of rain hit the window with a quiet tap. Then another. And another. Daniel's fingers tightened slightly. "Storm's coming," he said. Lena tilted her face up to his. "Let it rain." "Tell me you felt that electricity too." The way Daniel's fingers hovered near Lena's wrist. "That tension you could taste?" Asterisk if this story left you breathless, imagine what our exclusive Patreon content does. For just $3 per month, you'll get asterisk. Steamier extended versions. Personalized romance writing tips. Early access to all stories. Tap the link in description to join our inner circle. Or, keep pretending you're only here for the plot. Ko-Fi PayPal available for one-time support. Every coffee keeps these late-night stories coming. With love and dangerous ideas. Dino.